Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing part 4 of our Tom Petty series here with Sam St. John, taking a look at the 2000s. We've done the 70s, 80s, 90s, thus bringing us to the 2000s. When we last left off in the 90s, Tom was going through some tough times. He put out Echo, which is a divorce album. Howie Epstein, we talked about the bass player not showing up for the cover photo, and from that point on he was really reduced out of the band, so fired from the band for his drug habit and not being reliable. So that's where we left off. The 2000s, I just want to hit a couple of little highlights and then we'll get into the 3 albums we're going to cover today. 2001, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well deserved. They had both bass players there and both drummers, one song each for each. So it was interesting the way they had their all 7 guys inducted from the band, I guess, which was really cool to see. Stan Lynch and Ron Blair playing the first song, and then of course the great Howie Epstein and Steve Ferrone on the other. Also, the 2001 A Tragic Day in American History. Tom Petty did a wonderful rendition of I Won't Back Down on the Heroes, a tribute to Heroes, the benefit concert for the victims of 9/11. We can't forget that. 2002, a concert for George, his buddy George Harrison, who died the previous year. And Petty and the Heartbreakers did Taxman, I Need You, and Handle with Care in that concert. And also in 2008, they played the halftime show at the Super Bowl between the Giants and the New England Patriots. Super Bowl 42, in fact, put on a great show. And so that's just some of the extraneous stuff, highlights outside of what they were doing or what Tom Petty, was doing with his band. Sam, 2002 comes along and the Heartbreakers come up with The Last DJ.
Indeed.
Pretty interesting album, I think, with a message and some little venom in there in between the lines, and taking shots at the music industry in general and the bigwigs and the corporate greed. So hit us with what your thoughts are on The Last DJ.
Yeah, interesting album because, I mean, it fits right into Petty's mindset really since day one of their career. I mean, we've talked about that first album, how he hated the album cover because it didn't represent him. Again, we talked about Hard Promises with the album cover where he's, in front of the records and he was fighting for the pricing. He's always been, an advocate for the little guys like us, they've put their money in to buy my records, to see my shows. We need to respect that because they're not as fortunate as, us that are playing the music. So this is kind of like all of his rage and ire came out on kind of a mini concept album. I mean, really, it's like the first 4 songs really that kind of focus on the greed, and then after that it just kind of becomes a standard Tom Petty album. I mean, you have like The Last DJ, which is kind of like about a pirate radio DJ who plays what he wants to play, says what he wants to say. Because about this time, this is when iTunes and wasn't quite out yet, but Napster was big in the early 2000s. Digital markets were out there. And, those conglomerate radio stations were making an appearance where they just pressed a button for a preset playlist. So interesting album. It's a long album. It's not one that I go back to, but this one, an echo or two that, revisiting was a nice experience just because I don't always reach for these albums. But, yeah, I mean, it's a solid record. Actually, some of these songs were boycotted by the rock stations because they took a punch at the industry. This was the first album to kind of refeature Ron Blair, the original bassist, on a couple of tracks because Howie was in his final days. Howie would die, I think, in 2003, the following year. So that was something else that happened with Petty in this decade. They lost, one of their stalwart musicians. And yeah, so that was a blow. Ron's on 2 tracks. He would end up becoming a member up till the end, touring member, studio player. So and then you also have one of his go-to kind of session guys, Lindsey Buckingham, singing on the song "The Man Who Loves Women," with the great Lindsey Buckingham vocals on it. And obviously, he was on "She's the One," playing on some of those songs. So really a neat record. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, because you were seeing Petty around this time too, some more live, right?
I did see him, I think 3 times in the 2000s. I think that was right. Yeah, I saw him 3 different times. Yeah, at that point, Blair was back in the band. Howie was out. So just great concerts, every single one of them. One of them, I believe, had the Black Crows was the opening band. What was the other one? Well, Steve Winwood was a little bit later. I can't even remember. I should have wrote these down because nothing's popping into my head right now, ad-lib wise. But I just want to talk about a couple of these particular songs. The one is blatant. Money Becomes King, second track here. I mean, that's really laying it on the line, telling you all his thoughts about. It's told as a fable almost, you know. They're talking about doubling the price of tickets, and the cost of living is going up, and just it's looking back at how things used to be and how they are now. And Petty's not happy with it, obviously. I love The Last DJ, celebrating mediocrity. I mean, he's taking shots at the industry about pumping up some of them people who have the right image, not necessarily much talent, but they make money. And that's what the record companies are behind and selling. It's really a catchy, Petty song. There Goes Your Freedom of Choice, The Last Human Voice, There Goes the Last DJ. I heard it was a tribute to Jim Ladd, an LA DJ from the 70s. Back in those days, you could play whatever you want. There was no playlist, so to speak. They got control. If they wanted to play a whole side of an album, they would do so, or deep cuts, whatever. They had all kinds of things they would go to where they weren't playing off a playlist. You don't hear the same song hour after hour.
Yeah.
Like became the norm. But the album overall for me is a mixed bag. It has some really good stuff. It has some average tunes. But overall, I was glad I listened to it again. There's like When a Kid Goes Bad, sort of a cautionary tale. Dreamville, I like that song too. It's reminiscing of happier times. Have Love with Will Travel's fantastic. I mean, there's so many really good moments on the album, but nice cynical approach with some pot shots, speaking his mind. I like the Petty attitude, you know.
And you got
and you mentioned Howie Epstein. I'm sorry, Howie Epstein, only 47 years old when he died. I mean, let's not forget that.
Yeah. One of the songs, one of those just, gut punch songs is Joe, where he's talking about a music, executive, kind of almost like a Harvey Weinstein kind of guy. I know he was more into the movies, but it was kind of, I just imagine like this big, guy, like this huge, fat guy, high on the hog is what I imagine, like smoking his cigars,
right.
Bald, with his big suit, smoking all day long. Like that's what I imagine. But yeah, he takes some shots.
And there's like a whimsical song. I mentioned the Lindsey Buckingham vocals on The Man Who Loves Women. Kind of a ukulele in there as well. It's an interesting tune for Petty. And, it's in the right place in the construction of the album towards the end, just to break it up a bit with the musical instruments. Anyway, what are your top 3 off of this? What do you want to put onus on?
Between the two of us, we've mentioned all 3. But number 3 for me is Have Love Will Travel. I just think it's a gorgeous tune. Just, classic Petty kind of ballad. But just how he sings the song just has this like heartbreak in it. I love the tone of his voice in that track. Number 2 is the title track, the opening track, The Last DJ. It's got that great Mike Campbell guitar. And then like it's just the verses are so short. He just gets right to the chorus in like 20 seconds. I love it. It's classic Petty. It could have been on, a bunch of his albums before this. It just fits right in. And then number one for me is just the gorgeous Dreamville. I love it. Where he talks about going to buy the black diamond strings, which are, acoustic guitar strings.
Right.
Again, just like you said, a song of reminiscing. It's gorgeous. I absolutely love it. And if I were to, to pull out a deep cut, I would mention the song, The Man Who Loves Women, just because I do love Petty playing the ukulele on that. Kind of a tribute to George Harrison. I wonder if that was intentional.
Probably was.
So
yeah.
Those are my three.
Yeah, I have the same three, but a little different order. I have Dreamville number 3, gorgeous. Have Love Will Travel. I just love that. It's a sort of a message to somebody in his life, thinking of them while he's making his way through life. Have Love Will Travel. I'll think of you always, all kind of stuff. And I love The Last DJ. That's my number one. I just love the melody, the pop chorus. It's got that infectious, catchy kind of sound. It has the message behind it too. So it does it all. So that's my number one, The Last DJ, the title track.
Good deal.
All right. The second album we're going to talk about today comes 4 years later in 2006. This baby right here, Highway Companion. This is Tom Petty's last solo album that he would ever do. Mainly, again, in the studio, you got Petty, Mike Campbell, and Jeff Lynne putting this together. This is a solid album. Relaxed, reflective. Like I said, his third and last solo album. Very descriptive imagery, I think, of traveling on the road and injecting thoughts and memories and the people that have affected you in your life while you're driving. Sometimes, now a lot of these songs are on the road, and you get that feel. If you put this album on in the car, it's so relatable. Just a wonderful album. You get glimpses of particular moments, like I said, that flash through your mind. And everybody can relate to that. You don't plan these things out. All of a sudden, you're thinking of somebody or something, or you passed a graveyard, or whatever it is, a statue, and something just triggers something. So very relatable stuff, filled with fantastic songs, kind of laid back, but I like that side of Petty. What do you think?
Yeah, this was I've mentioned a bunch that we've done so far that I've related to a lot in college. This is another one that I just had in my car all the time in my college days. And I remember even when this came out, I would have been in middle school. But I remember seeing it sitting at the counter of Barnes and Noble registers, and thinking it was a weird looking album cover at the time. But now I think it's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I remember getting into it. It was one of the later Petty albums that I actually bought, and I remember just falling in love with the whole thing. I mean, it's just a fantastic record. Even though Jeff Lynne's name is on it, it doesn't really sound like a Jeff Lynne album. I don't think. I mean, there were glimpses again of kind of that sound, but I think it's much more Rick Rubin-y. And this is on the American recording label, the American Records. It was, I think, the only album he actually put out on American officially, because there was like a Columbia merger or something like that. But also interesting, Tom Petty's playing drums on the whole album. I mean, I think Lenny Castro might be doing some percussion, but Petty's the drummer. And so it's really, with the other solo albums, you had other members of the Heartbreakers, jumping in there. Wildflowers was essentially a Heartbreakers record, and Full Moon Fever, you had Ben Mott on a track, and a bunch of other guys filling sessions. But this album is really, really a solo album. I mean, it's kind of like McCartney 1 in that sense, because it is stripped back, but it's got some rockers on it. And I know the Heartbreakers toured under this album, but I didn't realize in doing some research is that a lot of people thought this was going to be a retirement album for him. But obviously that didn't happen. But
No.
yeah, I think it's fantastic. This one was a hard one to rank in terms of songs.
Yeah, I agree. And that title of the album is perfect, Highway Companion, because that's exactly what it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. A couple rockers, couple poppy tunes, some ballads, the usual mix. But what stands out to you or your favorites?
Well, I'll go ahead and say, in terms of deep cut, any song that I don't mention, this is one of those things where I really want people to listen to the full record because it is just that good.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like if nothing else from the series, check this record out, in my opinion. But number 3 for me, I know it's probably gonna be on your list, is Down South, which I've always said could be a lost track from the Southern Accent sessions, which would have been 21 years before this album. And it's just one of those great songs. He talks about wearing seersuckers and white linens, pretend I'm Samuel Clemens, just all these Southern, references. It
Yep.
fits so well. And then that chorus where if I could lie on your, if I could drive to your door, let me sleep on the floor. I'll give you all I have and a little more. And then you get that slide guitar from Mike. It's a beautiful song. Number 2 is the opening track, Saving Grace. It's got that great kind of, almost like a Bo Diddley kind of, and then like the drums hitting the hi-hats with the, it's so good. And then it breaks into it. I've talked about this with you. I remember hearing this song on classic rock radio. I think this was one of the last albums where you actually heard new Tom Petty songs on the radio. After that, they didn't really play his songs, as much on the rock stations. But Saving Grace is number 2, and number 1 for me was a no-brainer. It's Flirting with Time. I just think it's a fantastic song. I love the double harmony that Petty's singing with himself. Again, sounds like a classic Tom Petty song. It's upbeat. It's so good. You're flirting with time, baby, and then he goes into time, baby is catching up with you. It's so good. And again, more great guitar work from Campbell. So those are my 3. And yeah, if anything else that I would mention, maybe the song "Damaged by Love." It's a beautiful ballad. I highlight that one maybe, but they're all fantastic.
Yeah, I have the same 3. It's unbelievable, but again, in a different order. I have Saving Grace at number 3. Just a great opening driving song. I like some of these imageries here. I'm moving on alone over ground that no one owns, past statues that atone for my sins. Just great writing. There's a guard on every door and a drawer on every floor, overflowing with 1,000 amens. Fantastic writing. And that's my number 3. My number 2 is Flirting with Time. As catchy a song as he's ever done. Awesome stuff. Very polished, cool sound. And number 1 is Down South. I love Down South. I think it's one of his best songs ever. Returning to his roots. You mentioned the seersucker and white linens, the Spanish moss. I mean, he's laying out the imagery of the South. And, you mentioned that one line about laying on the floor, welcoming in. It has that Southern hospitality feel. He's talking about meeting his daddy's mistress, just going back and settling old financial stuff, kind of. So great song. You can use your imagination to interpret what he was getting at, and that's what I like in a songwriter. My deep cut, I like Big Weekend, little catchy little ditty. Kick up the dust. If you don't run, you rust. I just like that little song there. Having a big weekend.
And I could have put Square One, another beautiful ballad.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So
bittersweet, but great.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of bonus tracks on the special edition, which I don't have the special edition, but I'm sure they're on some of the other stuff. Home and Around the Roses. Do you know anything about those songs? Because I'm not really familiar.
I think I was just looking it up. Neither of those songs have been released.
Okay, there you go.
No,
they will be at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll be. I mean, we're coming up on 20th anniversary, potential in 2 years. So who knows?
Yeah. All right. So now we're down to our final album in this episode, and that is Mudcrutch. This is the band Tom Petty was in prior to the Heartbreakers. They took what, a 32-year absence after disbanding, and then come back in 2008 and make this record. Campbell's in it, Benmont Tench, Tom Ledden, Bertie Ledden's brother, and Randall Marsh. Just a different lineup. Yes, more country rock, southern rock, where they were. Of course, they're all from the Gainesville, Florida area, I guess, and it sounds like a southern album to me all the way through, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Tell us some specifics on what you know about Mudcrutch.
Well, I will say, for me, in my history, that's the first Tom Petty album I bought new. I always have to talk about that because I obviously came along on the end of his career. But yeah, I bought this album when it came out, and that was the first one. And then from that point, I had the greatest hits, but this was a cool one to buy. I should also mention that this also exists. If you don't have it, you can find it online. It's an EP, Mudcrutch Live, and they do a version of is it Jerry Lee Lewis's High School Confidential, and then they do 3 songs from the record. So really, really cool extended play. But it's one of those great albums. I mean, I love the gatefold with the picture of the guys. Kind of like a filter on it, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's got 3 of the core Heartbreak. It's got Tom and his 2 sidemen, who are Benmont and Mike. They've been his mainstays from the beginning, and it's cool because this album allows Tom Ledden is singing lead, Benmont sings on a song, and we'll get to the second album the next episode. But it's a fully realized band effort. Tom Petty's playing the bass on this one, so he's given Tom Ledden the rhythm guitar duties. Mike's doing his thing with mandolin and lead guitar, and I think it's cool because Randall Marsh was actually on an early Heartbreakers track or 2. I think on that first album he shows up, but it was recorded in just 2 weeks, and in 2007. So they just started recording this a year after Highway Companion was released, and the Super Bowl would be the following year in 2009, like you said, but. Just a fantastic record. It's a little bit long. There are some traditional covers on here. There's a bird song on here with Lover of the Bayou, and some arrangements by the guys of traditional tunes, and some really good originals on here too. So I absolutely love this album. I love it to death. I don't know what you have to say. I mean, I know you like Southern rock. You like Skinner and guys like that.
I do. I like this album. I don't love it as much as you do. I think it is overly long. There's 14 tracks. I'd probably cut it down to 10. There's 3 or 4 on here that are not as high up on the echelon or the quality. I think it suffers a little bit, but overall, it's a really strong album. I can't diss it. And it's Tom Petty, for God's sake. I mean, come on. It's fantastic. I don't mind the Roger McGuinn or the bird song here on their untitled album, Lover of the Bayou. It's okay. Yeah. But a couple of these songs, I don't want to trash any song that's going to be on your list, so I'm away from that. But I think we're going to have 3 different songs this time. Like before, we had them jumbled up. I think we're looking at different songs as our favorites here. Just an opinion. I don't know yet because we haven't discussed it. But,
yeah, I hope we do, because the first 2 we matched with our titles. For me, I'm going to go with the last track on the album, which is House of Stone. It's just a traditional country song. Campbell's got a really cool mandolin part, and I really, really like it. It's kind of about almost like a divorce kind of song. She's like, she lived in a house of stone. It's just really good. Number 2, it was a song that he wrote in response to Hurricane Katrina, which was Orphan of the Storm. It's got a great kind of organ part by Benmont. I love the chorus. I ain't the kind who gives up, but I'm so tired of rain. Lord, I'm just an orphan of the storm. Again, his songwriting never really went downhill, even up till the end. I mean, he didn't fizzle out with the quality of his writing. And then number 1 for me, I am going to go with the cover. I'm going to go with Shady Grove, the opening track. Obviously, I knew the track. It was written Well, it was done famously by the Dillards, who you might know from the Andy Griffith Show as the Darlin family. They did a great version of it, but I love how they do it. It's him with Tom Leadon on co-lead vocals. It's just a great tune. And again, I love the breakdown of it. I love how they make it their own. It's kind of got a little psychedelic moment in it, maybe toward the end. It's just, I really, really like their version of Shady Grove. So those are my three. And then in terms of a deep cut,
great opener, by the way.
Oh yeah. I might mention Bootleg Flyer or Scare. I love Scare Easy too. But I love this record.
We have a little bit different stuff here. Not much. Topanga Cowgirl is my number 3. I just like, dude. Yeah, it's a surprise. I just like the dude. It's kind of lilting, and I saw her, Topanga Cowgirl, and it's like watching a chick go by. I like that kind of theme. Topanga, I guess, is a county out in California somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm big on that. Topanga Cowgirl. My number 2 is Scare Easy. You mentioned it. Beautiful song. I like the theme of it, and I don't scare easy. It's got that petty inflection, and he means business here. And my number 1 is Orphan of the Storm. You mentioned it. I think that's the best track on the album for me, for my taste. So, deep cuts. I kind of like Lover of the Bayou, House of Stone, and Crystal River would be the 3 that I would just say that are solid.
Yeah, and Crystal River that was almost a jam band kind of tune, because that's on the EP. I think it's like 14 or 15 minutes on the EP. But yeah, it's a good tune.
Yeah, the middle of the album is really where I would, if I had to get the axe out and chop some stuff, I would take out Oh Maria, and this is a good street, the Benmont song, and maybe you got Queen of the Go-Go Girls would kick the dust here. I like Wrong Thing to Do too. The Wrong Thing to Do is interesting.
But I don't care.
Most of the songs that Petty wrote,
Yeah.
This is a good street. I do like Bootleg Flyer too. You mentioned that. That's more up-tempo stuff.
Again, kind of Bo Diddley. It's kind of,
it's got that bluesy kind of old school rock and roll sound.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's what takes us up to 2008. He did have an anthology, say in 2009.
The live anthology. Yeah.
Live anthology.
Covered his whole career, and I think the way that they set it up is his family set it up. He had a hand in it, because he said that he wanted it to be like a concert, so he wanted it to flow, so it doesn't go in order of timeline. It's cool because I think it ends with All Right for Now from Let Me Up I've Had Enough, which is kind of neat to hear.
Yeah.
He's got some good stuff on there. A lot of it would end up on the Fillmore set that came out, a couple of years ago. Some of those songs were on there. Stuff from like the 30th anniversary tour in 2006, 2007. So yeah, that's all good stuff. And yeah, we're closing out the 2000s with, a side project essentially.
I think I should have mentioned the documentary. Wasn't that in 2006 or 7?
Running Down a Dream. Yeah, it was 2007. Yeah.
So that should be in this episode too, directed by Peter Bogdanovich. That's like a 3-hour with a concert involved and interviews throughout the history of the band. It's well worth checking out if you haven't seen it. It was on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if it still is. I have a copy of it somewhere, but it's very, very good. In depth would be definitely the word I would say to you. Bogdanovich is not going to make a piece of crap documentary. He really delves into it. A lot of stuff with Tom and his father, a lot of stuff with the roots of the band, and just all the different nuances that you want to discuss and know about. So that's going to wrap up our episode 4. We will be back next time with the 2010s, which unfortunately is the last episode and the final decade of Tom Petty's life, but we have to do, we're completists and we want to do the whole shebang. So be sure to subscribe to Sam St. John if you haven't already. Give us a like, a thumbs up if you like this content. Leave some comments in the comment section below. So for Sam, this is Rich. Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate everyone. Take care. See you next time.